Is the Big 12 or the Pac-12 the better football conference? We have a situation where you have a Big 12 team in the college football playoff as we speak. And is it shocking that TCU is having the season that they're having? It really is. I think it's a shocker. But they find themselves in the college football playoff semifinal. And Jake, I wonder, do you believe that that makes the Big 12 a better conference than the Pac-12 right now?
No, I mean, I don't think that it makes them a better conference per se. I think what it does is it pushes the envelope, though. It brings the margins closer. And I think, the reason I tend to think that the Pac-12 is a better overall conference just from a footballing standpoint is because you have more teams that are relevant. I mean, in the Big 12, TCU really is the ticket right now. And I know that, last year Baylor had a nice year and, there was all the controversy about Texas and Oklahoma leaving. And, you've just had, you've had some teams, leaving but getting better. Like you've just had some sort of churning happening in the conference. But I look at the Pac-12, again, just from a footballing standpoint, I think they're a better conference. But this question isn't just about footballing either. I think when we've talked a bunch on this show about the business of college football, like TV deals, like attendance, like overall attractiveness of your conference. And that's where I think the Pac-12 struggles. Obviously, I think they have not done a good job. So when we get right down to it, I do think the Pac-12 edges the Big 12 just a touch because they are right now better on the field, in my opinion, than the Big 12. But let's say that the Big 12, but I think if the Big 12 puts a team in next year and is consistent and has another TCU style team out there next year, and the Pac-12 continues to not put teams in the college football playoff, then I think you have like you're going to have a switch there. But the last thing I'd say is that the Pac-12 really hurts itself with scheduling. And I think we would be having a different conversation if SC could have beat Utah once. And I think everyone expected SC to beat Utah once. And if SC had done that, how different does a college football playoff look? And that's what the trouble is.
Well, I think we'd be having a different conversation if Chip Kelly had actually not lost 4 games at UCLA. I think we'd be having a different conversation if my aunt or my uncle, but she's not, so we're not. I think the conversation we're having is, I truly believe that the Pac-12 is undersold as a football conference. That's what I think. And I think it is about teams like Oregon State, I think, is the perfect example of this conversation, because when I look at Oregon State, I don't think people understand how quality that program is. And it goes to show you the exact thing we talked about yesterday when the coaches poll has USC ranked ahead of Utah, even though Utah beat USC twice. It's because nobody pays attention to Pac-12 football in my mind.
It's garbage.
Yeah, nobody's watching Utah. Nobody knows how good the Utah Utes are or the perseverance that they've showed. I just think that on the whole, the Pac-12 is underserved because of how bad the management in the conference has been. But if we're talking team to team, if we're talking who's the better football conference, man, it's hard to take the Pac-12 over the Big 12 as it's currently constituted today. Now, in 2024, it's going to be almost impossible to take the Pac-12 over the Big 12 because you're not going to have USC and UCLA, depending on what happens on, I guess, December 14th when the Board of Regents meets.
Right.
But my feeling is USC and UCLA wind up going to the Big 10. But what I'm not going to be able to get away from is that you don't have depth and balance in the conference without USC and UCLA. And I look at what the Big 12 did in reaction to Oklahoma and Texas fleeing to the SEC, and you add power programs like BYU and Cincinnati and Houston and Central Florida, like you add those 4 big schools, I think that gives you really quality depth. And Luke Fickell be damned, Cincinnati's not just going to go into a nosedive here, right? I look at BYU, you would expect BYU to continue to make changes the way that they have after a bad season that didn't meet expectations. Those are the hallmarks of good programs reacting and building. I don't think, to all due respect to everybody else in the Pac-12, nobody's making up for the loss of USC and UCLA in the Pac-12. I think right now today, I think I could make a really good argument that the Pac-12 is a better football conference than the Big 12. But I cannot get away from the idea that TCU's in the college football playoff semifinal right now, that USC is not. I think it's absolutely crippling to this conference. And in a time where the transfer portal is lighting up, we have over 1,000 entrants into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I think it's awfully difficult not to think that right now here today, I think it's really close. I don't know that you can draw a line on one side or the other. If I had to pick, I would probably lean to the Big 12 because of what Kansas did this year, what Kansas State did this year, knocking off, TCU in the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship.
Yep.
That's a huge deal for the Big 12. And the quality that was TCU all year to still wind up in the college football playoff is pretty dang impressive. So I think if I had to lean one way or the other, I think I would probably go with the Big 12 today just because I think right now the conference is a little deeper.
Yeah, and I couldn't blame you for that. I think that it's really interesting, the ebb and flow of different conferences as well. Like you look at the Big 12 and you think about all those Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley teams that made so much noise in that conference. You think about the great Texas teams of past, and you think about how the conference has changed and evolved. And the one thing that does trouble me if we kind of reframe this to, hey, which conference looks better in the future? Well, certainly it's the Big 12, and that's the trouble. I think you look at what Brett Yormark is able to do and what he's done so far. You look at like you just said, the teams they're adding and sort of the direction they're heading, and the Big 12 does look like it's in a much better position. And I think once SC is in the Big 10 and UCLA is in the Big 10, and we kind of get some clarity on like what teams like Oregon are going to do and what teams like Stanford, and like Stanford's a great example. Stanford's a low-end football program who doesn't have a head coach right now, who is sort of floating in the middle of the ocean waiting for some answers to come along. And so it's like it's that kind of team that hurts you. And that's the kind of team that the Big 12 has replaced now with teams like BYU and Cincinnati. And
but
you know what I mean?
I also don't think there's an elite program in either conference. I mean, I think USC and Utah clearly are the class of the Pac-12. But if we look at the Big 12, who's the class of the Big 12 right now?
Yeah, I think it's different every year, which again tells me that you're not a super elite conference. Like I look at the SEC and you know the names on any given year. It's going to be Georgia or Bama. Some years it's going to be LSU. Some years Auburn's going to wake up and have one good year. Like you know the names. And to me, that like the SEC is rather balanced. You have 4 or 5 teams that on any given year could be college football playoff caliber, and then you have the rest, the best of the rest, if you will. Whereas the Big 12, you don't really know who the name is going to be. I mean, obviously now you're going to have to look at TCU each and every year until major change happens. But like, can anybody honestly say that Baylor every single year is really good? Well, I know they're good enough to beat a team like BYU, let's say, or they're good enough to beat that caliber team, but they're not college football playoff good every single year.
Well, and I think the team that disappointed you this year was Oklahoma State. I mean, being a 500 and this year 4-5 sub 500 team in the conference is shocking. And I think obviously Baylor fell off. And I mean, you look at Iowa State, terrible, 1-8 this year, right? But you also look at the fact that TCU went 9-0. That K-State went 7-2. The Texas was 6-3. Texas Tech, I think very quietly, Texas Tech had a solid, not spectacular, but a solid season. And I think if we're comparing these conferences, as I guess we're all wanting to do between the Big 12 and the Pac-12, I just look at the bottom of the Pac-12, and I just don't know what's going to be left of this conference of teams like Colorado. This whole discussion around Deion Sanders at Colorado is a bad
because it's garbage,
untalented program.
Yeah.
But Deion Sanders, I think, immediately changes that. So let's just say, what's best case scenario Colorado? You're middle third in the Pac-12, right? I mean, if you give prime credit, you're going to be better immediately than Arizona State and Stanford, right? But a year from now, are we saying that Colorado had a better year than Jed Fish in Arizona?
Yeah.
You think so?
100%.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's possible.
Arizona
It's
is
not outlandish to say they had a better year than Cal.
Yeah.
Right? That's not outlandish at all.
I think you're better than both the Arizona schools. I think you're better than Cal. You're better than Stanford. But then that's kind of where the train stops because you look at a team like Oregon State. That is the Pac-12's Texas Tech, if you will, right? Like Oregon State is a really quality program that nobody talks about.
Is Colorado better than UCLA next year?
No.
Because at some point, DTR is not going to be the quarterback there. I actually think he's got 10 more years of eligibility. Tell me it doesn't feel like DTR has been there a decade.
Yeah, dude.
That is UCLA football seemingly always. I mean, you would think if Deion comes in and builds Colorado, you're going to be better than
let's
them.
say Deion overachieves, though. Let's say that Deion somehow finds his way into 7 or 8 wins.
So now all of a sudden you're better than Oregon State, Washington State.
Yeah, you elevate yourself into that cup that's not better than Oregon and Utah, but you are better than everybody else.
So let's say it's Utah 1, USC 2, Oregon 3, Washington 4. So what does that put Colorado 5?
Yeah, you're somewhere in there.
So
exactly.
If that's the case, I still think the Big 12 is slightly better because I think the Big 12, well, again, I don't think there's an elite football program in the Big 12 right now. TCU, I am massively underselling TCU. But I don't know. We'll see.
But I think
I feel bad saying that TCU's not elite. They're undefeated in conference and they're 1 losses in the conference championship game and if they beat Michigan, there's no doubt that the Big 12 is better.
Right.
There's just no doubt about that.
Yeah,
right?
But I think we can't get away from this transfer portal thing either. Like as far as Prime is concerned, as far as these conferences are concerned, we're going through our day yesterday. You know, we do the show. By the way, we put out some new YouTube shorts. Go and watch those. Those are pretty cool. We go to the gym, and this whole time we just keep getting Twitter notifications. This guy, this quarterback, that quarterback, Buddy's quarterback, like all these quarterbacks in the transfer portal. And it just begs the question in my head, like for someone like Deion Sanders and a lot of these other coaches who are that younger, energetic coach that really understands how to leverage the transfer portal, the Lincoln Rileys of the world, the Deons of the world, like these guys that really make their living on the transfer portal, that's going to fast track turning around a program. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and put the same expectations on Deion that we had on Lincoln going to SC. I don't think that's fair.
I'm telling you, Boulder is not dissimilar from Palo Alto. Like Stanford and Colorado, the educational bar is awfully high at Colorado. And I know, I mean, they had the conversation about academics. You have to at Colorado. I don't know. I think Deion is a fascinating conversation. I think the bigger conversation about Deion Sanders is this guilt trip that's going on right now about Prime leaving Jackson State and how can you leave a historically black college and the inability to appreciate somebody's success and the desire to keep them in their place is something I will just never understand. But whatever it is, guilt tripping or faulting or taking issue with Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State to go to Colorado is mind-numbing to me. Deion Sanders is always going to do what's best for Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. If you are somebody that believes that, because you had success at a historically black college, that you need to stay there for the sake of the college, I think you don't understand humanity. Honestly, I don't. The whole guilt tripping thing with him is ridiculous. All right, Big 12 versus Pac-12 as we talk college football on the Monty Show. As always, our college football talk is presented by Barbecue Pit Stop. Hey, they have a really cool thing going on right now. They're trying to raise money to help a family for the holidays, so make sure you find them on their Instagram, BBQ Pit Stop, or just go to their website, bbqpitstop.com. They have a really cool seasoning pack that is in place to help, a family that is in need right now. And the best part about that is that when you go to Barbecue Pit Stop, they're going to give a piece of the profit from that seasoning pack to this family that I just think is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's why we do business with guys like Barbecue Pit Stop. because when you look at what they do, and when you look at the way that Barbecue Pit Stop does business, I mean, you just have to appreciate. So they have this this family, and I'm going to get this wrong, the Cassius family. The Pit Stop Star Rubs are for sale at all of their Utah stores. So Logan, Layton, Murray, Lehigh, and St. George. You can get this. You can get the Barbecue Pit Stop Star Rubs in their Utah stores. A percentage of those sales will go to the family. And trust me when I say they're the perfect gift. And go to bbqpitstop.com or go to any of their Utah locations. Say, hey, Monty said you guys are selling these rub packs to benefit this family that's in need right now. And if you just go in and talk to those guys and talk to them about, you know, how important the community is, you can tell it's genuine. You can tell it's real. And it's why I have all the respect in the world for guys like, you know, Steve at the Lehigh store or any of these guys that own these barbecue pit stops. Their willingness to give back to the community. Obviously, on this show, you know that's huge for us. But the guys at Barbecue Pit Stop, if you have an extra dollar or two, you know, spend your money with those guys. They're great for gift giving for dad, your brother, your mom, anybody that's a food fan, anybody that's a smoker or barbecue fan. bbqpitstop.com. You can chat with them on their website. You can buy from their online store. You can go into any of their 5 local stores here in Utah. Again, Logan, Layton, Murray, Lehigh, and St. George. They're all great people, and they're giving back to their community. I love that about the guys at Barbecue Pit Stop. All right, let's get your thoughts in here. Who's better, the Big 12 or the Pac-12? Why don't we start with MI Monty fan who says, good morning. Let's get it today. Indeed. Neville 93. How are you? Yo, good morning to the best sports show. Thank you. Logan Street says, morning, guys. No doubt that the Pac-12 was better than the Big 10 in 2022.
I would agree with that. On the field, I would agree with that. Off the field, I would disagree
I'm
with
not
that.
taking the bait on the Big 10 today. I'm not. The Big 10 is a horribly overrated football conference.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think it needs to be some big thing.
Yes, it does.
Like, you know,
somebody needs to tell the truth about what goes on in that family.
Hey, you start talking shit.
You know, like
the Big 10. I'm so tired. The Big 10 needs to win games. Period. You've got 2 teams in the college football playoff. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, well, and Smith and Jigma's not playing.
Well,
but doesn't matter.
Not able to come back. Doctors have told him he is likely better off just preparing for the NFL. So he will not play in the bowl game, and he is preparing for the combine. Big loss for Ohio State. I don't want to hear it. Everybody's got injuries. Ask Michigan about Blake Corum. Yeah. Everybody's got injuries. I am tired of the hype train that is the Big Ten. I'm tired of hearing about it. You've got 2 teams, undeservedly so. You've got 2 teams in the college football playoff. Win the whole damn thing.
How about that?
Because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it when Georgia ultimately steamrolls Ohio State, when if TCU beats Michigan, my God, this is going to be a long show for Big Ten fans.
Bonnie, please.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the, the barometric pressure dropped in the 3rd quarter.
It's the fucking vernal equinox.
Jim Harbaugh's glasses fogged up, and then his butthole started itching. What were we supposed to do? We can't control the weather. It'll be something stupid. Oh, the officials. Did you see him throw those flags? Like, it'll be something stupid like that. Well, we all know that everybody wanted to see the Christians get in. That's why TCU won that game.
Uh-huh.
Get out of here. The Big Ten is so overrated. Yeah, you better check yourself. Hey, Teddy Wayman, good to see you in the beard. MY Monty fan says, the beard, the myth, the legend. Good morning, Teddy. Teddy, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We've made your beard a superstar. Giggity says, what's up, my guys? Giggity, how are you? Hope Phoenix is treating you well. Forrest G. Teddy says, LOL, morning, MY Monty fan. See, the beard is doing the job. Steve Lopez, hello. Jesse Harsh, good morning, too. He says, the only thing that the Pac-12 has over the Big 12 is jerseys. Well, I mean, Oregon's paint splatter is something spectacular. No? Okay. Buenos dias, hombres, says San Diego State Aztec. Did you like that? I mean,
yeah, that was well done. I mean, that was, good job.
Forrest G says, Jesse, I went to high school with Taft, LOL. I don't know what that means. Logan Street says, morning, guys. The Pac-12 top to bottom was better than the Big 12 in 2022, but it will be interesting going forward as SC and UCLA were up and Texas and OU were down. It might level off when they're gone. I think the Big 12 has done the best possible job of mitigating the loss of Texas and Oklahoma because you're never going to replace them.
Yep.
They're not. Those are huge brands. But Cincinnati, now that Luke Fickell's gone, he's at Camp Randall in Wisconsin, Madison. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know that you can replace him. I don't care who they hired. I don't know that you can replace him.
I just don't think you replace special talent or big nameplates, but that doesn't mean your conference all of a sudden is burning in the ground. I still think they can do some productive
I don't think
things.
you're burning to the ground,
yeah.
but
I think you're fine. I think that you still have found a way to put a team in the college football playoff, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kurt Myers says, good morning, my people. Morning escape. Yes, indeed. We're glad to do that for you. San Diego State says, the Advocates, Phoenix, accidents, Dallas. Yeah, about last night that happened. The Suns are quickly becoming Luka's play toy. Yeah, and Book no-showed last night. And this is my one complaint about Devin Booker. It's my guy. It's my guy. We need to procreate. We do. But you got to show up in big games. It's unacceptable to get boat raced by punchable face. I just can't.
Yeah. Yep.
Devin Booker had, I think, 11 points last night. I could not watch. I hate Luka Doncic.
Let's consult the douche meter.
The most punchable face in the NBA is Luka Doncic.
Get a fast pass for douche mountain because you're a douche.
Yeah. In our vaunted top secret
behind the scenes classified
pre-show meeting, Jake said, I'll never understand why teams allow him to shoot threes. I agree. Make him drive to the basket and then pound him physically.
That guy's definitely a douche.
And yet teams won't do it. They fall for the step back. It's not like he's lightning quick. I understand he's quicker than you think he is. Take the three away from him. He's not agile.
Yeah.
It's not like Luka Doncic is blowing by anybody.
You're a douche.
Okay. Christopher Shannon. I'd still say the Pac-12 is better because of more flagship universities and larger alumni bases. Big 12 universities are small and specific to private Christian missions or farming. Now you're overthinking it.
Okay.
Now you're overthinking it. Plain and simply put, DTR's been at UCLA for 10 years.
Yep.
And Baker's a free agent about to be. We'll see. We'll talk about that. And coming up in about 20 minutes on Football at 50, Lord Radon, good morning. Big 12 is a collection of misfits and leftovers. That's not necessarily a terrible thing, but just realize what they are. I don't disagree that they're a bunch of misfits.
Yeah, but somehow, again, they found their way in the college football playoff, right?
Yeah.
So...
yeah.
Come on.
Roger Sales, good morning. Pac-12 has always beat itself up and hence gets no respect. Good for bowl betting most years. This year, bet the Pac-12 in all the bowl games. Well, they do have some really favorable matchups.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is Utah versus Penn State. So we'll see. Skeet says ridiculous. Okay. What's ridiculous?
What exactly is ridiculous?
I don't know. Yeah, Little Jizzy says Jizzy in the house.
Little Jizzy.
Careful, it stains. Kanai Johnson says morning, fellas. Sean Mirzinski says over 1,000 players just yesterday entered the portal. Before that, the record was 270. And quarterbacks all over the place.
And that's what I'm saying. The portal is going to be prolific. I mean, the portal is going to allow, it's the age-old thing. The portal is both the best and the worst thing. Like, for Kyle Whittingham, probably not the best thing that you got 1,000 guys entering the portal yesterday. No. For Dion and Lincoln and Kirby and Jimbo and Dabo, good day in the portal. Good day. We're going to go and get some boys, right? Those guys know how to use the portal. So that's why I'm saying it'll be really interesting to see how the portal plus NIL equals natties. That's basically what the equation is. You got to have NIL money to pair with guys in the transfer portal to go out and win a national championship.
Yeah, I don't know either. And the thing that I think is so fascinating is those that dominate the portal dominate college football.
Yep.
Plain and simply put. Lord Radon says, remember last year when there was all that talk about Iowa State being a top 10 team? I needed a good laugh this morning. Iowa State's that team that like once every 5 years, you'll get a broadcaster will be like, welcome to Ames, Iowa, the upstart Iowa State somebody's. I can't remember their name because nobody cares about Iowa State, but we're here doing a football game.
That's fucking interesting, man.
Right? Like Iowa State, like once every 5 years.
Was it the cornfields that distracted you?
Oh, my God. It's crazy, dude. It is crazy. Marby Dog, good morning. My only anxiety with Dion, if I'm a Buff, is Prime is working for Prime, not Colorado. Well, I mean, it was an interesting job choice because he could have had pretty much any open job in college football. But Colorado offers you a lot of things. Colorado, and one of the things that Dion is already selling is that he is going to take that kid who historically does not get into Colorado. He's going to take that kid. He's going to bring him to Colorado. He's going to make sure that they get access to an elite education and that they play college football.
Well, and I think the thing you got to understand about what Dion wants, it's not that Dion's looking for the best job, right? The best job by traditional standards. Dion is acutely aware that the recipe for success at Jackson State was that they were a garbage program, and he's the reason they're winning football games. Not all the talent, right? Not all the football players, but that he is the catalyst for climbing the mountain. And Colorado is in that same position where you've been a bad program, and now you're going to start again. You've been an awful program in the Pac-12. I didn't even remember that you were in the Pac-12. You were probably in like the Pac-50 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, you're a bad program. But now you've brought in Dion, and it fits for Dion because now he can be the shining star. He can be the saving grace. And now, yes, he's going to bring kids in. He's going to develop kids, and his kid's going to play quarterback. So it's the same formula, just now he's in a P5 playing against better players on the other side of the line of scrimmage. That's the only difference. So to me, that's why he took Colorado instead of a Cincinnati or another program that's kind of proved itself already.
Yeah, and it's what bothers me so much about this criticism of him. And it is, it's what we do. And specifically, I think it is tightly wound to the black community. That when you have somebody that is, hey, this kid, we grew up on the block, you can't leave the block. Like, hey, they're going to hate on you because of your success. And when they get a chance to be around you, they can't wait to get their hands on you, right? But once you leave, it's like, oh, he's a jerk or he abandoned us. There's nothing wrong with Deion Sanders leaving a historically black college at Jackson State to go to Colorado.
Sorry if you're offended by that.
There's nothing wrong with that. It is clearly a step up. It is clearly more money. They're going to have to. Did you guys see yesterday that they have not yet figured out how they're going to pay Deion Sanders? They still have to work out the money end of it on Colorado's end, which is crazy. But it's a big step up for Deion Sanders, and we should not be criticizing Prime for that. We should be celebrating Prime for that.
Well, it's like, oh, how could you leave the neighborhood? Right? That's what they'll say to his
face.
But
it's true.
But then when he's not around, they'll say, oh, our neighborhood sucks. Our neighborhood sucks. We don't have a good neighborhood.
There's something to that, too.
You know what I mean? So
there's
it's like it's that
double-faced,
narrative, and I think that, I give Deion credit. Like, you got to go and do what you got to do, man.
But
This
you're
is
not.
what it is.
The other thing is you're not supposed to bring everybody with you.
No.
I think there's something.
It's Nick Saban thing.
You're not supposed to bring everybody with you because not everybody that you know is good for you. It's probably one of those conversations.
Yes.
So the biggest stories in sports every morning on this show presented by Quick Quack Car Wash. Hey, we've had a lot of snow, rain, sleet, salt on the roads here in the great state of Utah. I'm telling you now that there's no better place to get all that washed off the car than at Quick Quack Car Wash. We're going there today after the show because it's supposedly...
Allegedly.
And Mother Nature's a liar sometimes, but supposedly it's going to be a beautiful, crisp, 40-degree sunny day.
3/4 of this is inaccurate.
Going to run through the Quick Quack Car Wash. 5-7 minutes. We'll be in and out of there. Probably need to hit the vacuums today. Klaus, the Audi's taken a beating over the last couple of days, so we probably need to hit the vacuums. But those are free at Quick Quack, so we're going to do that for sure. The towels to wash the mirrors and the windows, those are all free. You want to touch up your door jambs, the towels are free at Quick Quack, and the people are really friendly. We'll be there today. I'm telling you, the best car wash in the business is Quick Quack Car Wash. I don't think there's any doubt that the Heisman Trophy finalists are one of the biggest stories in sports. I'm curious what you guys think about this. When you look at the Heisman Trophy finalists, and you start to understand that Stetson Bennett is probably going to win the Heisman Trophy.
Should win the Heisman Trophy.
So you should win the Heisman Trophy.
Okay, so here's where so in the big picture, generally speaking on the Heisman, not unique to this year. I'm a big believer that when you're talking about the Heisman, there's the guy that should win it based on his team's record, based on the resume, based on how he performed. And then there's the best quarterback of them all in terms of the NFL.
Right.
That logic applies this year. Stetson Bennett, there's no chance that I'd rather have Stetson Bennett than Caleb Williams. That said, Stetson Bennett's going to win the Heisman this year because he plays at Georgia, because they are undefeated, and because they are probably going to win the college football playoff. Now, that said, if I'm drafting, I'm taking Caleb Williams because the modern-day NFL quarterback needs to be able to move more than Stetson can move, and Caleb Williams has an absolute cannon. Now, again, all the Utah people are going to be like, oh, well, he disappointed, he lost, whatever, he's a loser. And that's fine. That's why he won't win the Heisman.
Yeah.
But what I'm telling you is that if I'm drafting, I want Caleb Williams. If I'm on the Heisman, train, I'm taking Stetson. That's just how the Heisman works. And I think Stetson deserves it. I think the guy, has done a hell of a job. I think that he's been through a lot at Georgia. He sat behind some guys. Like, he's done some, he had to wait. But now he's taking full advantage. So that's kind of where I come down on that.
Are you a C.J. Stroud guy? You look at this group of finalists on the screen.
Yeah.
And you have Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan from TCU, C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, and Caleb Williams from USC.
Uh-huh.
Are you a C.J. Stroud guy? Because I have respect for what C.J. Stroud has done. I do. There is just no doubt about the fact that C.J. is to go to Ohio State for everything they're not as a program.
Excuse me.
As a program.
Thank you.
C.J. Stroud has 37 touchdowns at 6 interceptions. Crappy competition. Okay, and when we're looking at the individual performer, I don't much care. 37 touchdowns and 6 interceptions is pretty dang good no matter who you are.
Right.
Right? So I think that C.J. Stroud by the numbers should be there. But when you're Stetson Bennett and you have the numbers that Stetson has, but you have the expectations
because you've won
that Stetson Bennett has.
Yes.
And I think this is something that I think matters in this conversation. I don't believe that there were national championship expectations on Caleb Williams. I don't believe that Duggan had national championship expectations.
Agreed.
Stetson Bennett, the entire season, had national championship expectations at Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I think when you throw for 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in the SEC and you perform at a very high level and you look at his season and you start looking at, the fact that he closed with a big performance against Georgia Tech, you Kentucky, Mississippi State, Tennessee, you look at Florida, Vandy, Auburn, Mizzou, Kent State, South Carolina. I think that's Samford.
Yeah.
That I should know better, but it's Samford. And unfortunately, his biggest game, if you're an Oregon fan, was to open the season against Oregon. My biggest concern about Stetson Bennett's candidacy is he didn't have that one game where you were like, hot damn.
No, but what he did have is dominating team performances from an offensive perspective. And I think when you compare C.J. Stroud's numbers to Bennett's numbers, the one thing that really stands out is the touchdown difference. And so on the surface, everyone's going to say, oh, well, C.J. should win the Heisman then, right? Because dude's got 37 touchdowns and Stetson's got 20, right? But if you really start to take a look at this and you start to understand, oh, well, Georgia has great running backs. Georgia runs the hell out of the football. Georgia, isn't in a position where they need their quarterback to throw them every single week to victory. And that's where I think you start getting in the weeds on the Heisman, because I agree. National championship expectation should absolutely matter. If you got to play with that pressure every single week, not that, he's living his life saying, oh my God, I've got all this pressure, but there's a certain standard you got to live up to if you're going to be the starting quarterback of a team like Georgia.
Yeah. But again, I think there are expectations on the individual level at Ohio State. And I think the problem for CJ Stroud is he's not the runner that I think everybody makes him out to be. And he threw 2 picks in the biggest game of the year. I mean, now he played really well against Penn State, 354 and a touchdown. But when you throw for 349 yards, but you get picked twice by Michigan, that's a problem, which brings me back to what I've been saying pretty much all season long. I think Caleb Williams is going to win the Heisman Trophy because if you look at
those numbers, though.
His numbers are ridiculous. 4,074 yards, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But you look at his numbers, I mean, to put up 363, 3 touchdowns and an interception, and granted, you lost, but very clearly, Caleb Williams played some pretty good football
How much
against
does losing
Utah.
matter?
Well, and this is one of the conversations we need to have. And I don't know, does winning and losing matter when we're talking about who should win the Heisman Trophy? And I think when you look at the Heisman, it's an individual award. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it. It's not a team award, which is why I think CJ Stroud's more in the conversation. And I think statistically Stetson Bennett is not. And if we're doing just individual award, individual performances, USC's defense is trash, bro.
Yeah.
This kid can really play quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the performances where in their game of consequence in the regular season, and again, I understand it was a loss, he put up 381 yards at Utah and 5 touchdowns.
Well, and I think that point you make about how the dynamic at play at SC, where you're clearly playing in a Lincoln Riley led offense, which essentially means that you're going to be passing down the field at a really high rate. I could see that working both ways. And this is, again, not to be negative, but this is where I have trouble with college football, because what I'm about to say applies to the college football playoff rankings, to the AP, to coaches polls, basically to any sort of ranking system, right? So, hey, you play in a Lincoln Riley-led offense, which inherently means that you're going to get way more opportunity to put up big numbers. Should that help you or should that hurt you? Right? Because if Stetson Bennett plays on a team where you have prolific running backs and a prolific offensive line, he shouldn't be penalized for that, right? So his, whatever his numbers were, his 20 touchdowns and 2,800 yards or whatever it was, should be just as good in that system as Caleb's 4,038. Right? In a Lincoln Riley-led system. That's where I start to have trouble. So if it's individual, if we're just going numbers are numbers, well, yeah, then Caleb's going to run away with it. But I think it's more than that. I think you got to put some substance to it. You got to put some perspective on it. So to me, again, I would go with Stetson. I think there's expectations. It's not good enough to lose in your championship game. Like it's just not. But again, it's an individual award.
But I think you're exactly right. I think for the Heisman voters, and I know dozens of Heisman voters. I know a lot of Heisman voters, and it is an individual award, and I think they look at individual numbers weighted against how good the talent around them are, which is why Stetson Bennett's numbers, I think, are troubling. Mm-hmm. And I think he may have trouble. Now, if I were voting, I would probably vote for Caleb Williams or Stetson Bennett. I don't know. I would have to really dig into it. I wouldn't want to be the soccer writer who's voting for college football.
And again, and this is the schedule thing too, though, not to cut in, but like the schedule thing matters here. Once again, like who you played has to matter in this equation.
Well, and I think because every team, no matter who you are, has big games on your schedule.
Yeah.
Some may have 2, some may have 5. I look at Caleb Williams, and all I can say is he balled out against Utah. That UCLA performance was scintillating.
Yeah.
470 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran for 33 more and another touchdown. Granted, he threw a pick. But you look at his big games, man. They're all big games on their schedule.
And the pick thing,
it's Utah, it's UCLA.
He's only got 4 on the season. I don't think if you're a Heisman voter, you're like, oh, well, he threw a pick against Utah, or like, that was a horrible game. Like, he's got 4 on the season, dude.
I mean, he is Caleb Williams. As much as I hate the fingernail polish thing, like, listen, there's nobody that's a bigger Notre Dame fan. He won the game against Notre Dame.
You're also
he
the
dominated
guy,
Notre Dame.
But aren't you also the guy that says, hey, you got to have, like we were just talking about this with Kalani yesterday, you got to have that FU mentality on some level.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know that that you need to be writing it on your fingernails. It's low cash, but we'll see. I don't know. Where do you guys come down on this? Who would you vote for to win the Heisman Trophy? K-Do, what's up with you? Good morning, guys. Once SC and UCLA leave, Colorado will have an easier path to reach an expanded college football playoff with a reduced PAC. Prime has a few years to build Colorado.
Agreed.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
I agree with that. Boyd Lake says it's Max Duggan for Heisman. Tanner Plummer, good morning. Are you in a better mood today? He says, man, if Caleb Williams wins it, I'll be ticked.
Why?
I mean, I think he's deserved it.
Like, why?
Let's see. PLL Superfan Forever says Stetson shouldn't win based on stats. No,
well, but
no,
that's
he
the
shouldn't.
conversation,
Yeah,
right?
he should not win based on stats.
So what do you win a Heisman Trophy on? Because first of all, what we need to not skip is this a quarterback award? Like, let's just get that out of the way.
This year, certainly it is.
I think basically every year, unless there is, just a ridiculous, like clearly the reason you're winning wide receiver or back, it's a quarterback award, and so that's the first thing that needs to be said. But again, I feel like it just needs to be pointed out, like, what is the criteria? If it's just stats, we know who the winner is. It's very clear. Well,
and I think the He Is Man Trophy is the single best player in college football. That, to me, is what the Heisman Trophy is. And I think when you look at the Heisman, if I said to you, who's the best player in college football?
I would go Caleb Williams. I would, just like I said.
I think it's hard not to go Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
This is not the best defender. This is not the best wide. It's the best player in college football. Kind of hard to say that's not Caleb Williams, especially with the numbers and the big performances that you put up there. It's tough not to do that. Nathan gives us a $5 tip. Good morning, Nathan. How long before schools are able to offer multi-year contracts to combat the portal? Well, I think that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think they're trying. Obviously, this is why you can transfer once and not have to worry about, sitting out. You're eligible immediately, or if you're a grad transfer, but you're going to have to figure out how to stop Keaton Slovis from bouncing around school to school, or quarterback bouncing around school to school, or whatever it might be. Right now, the biggest issue with the transfer portal is that guys are getting paid. So you're seeing a slew of starting quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal.
Even if you had a good year.
Yeah. But I think the transfer portal was originally designed for Jacob Conover. Hey, I don't feel like I'm going to get a chance at BYU. I want to transfer and go somewhere where I can get a chance to start right away.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I understand why Jacob Conover transferred.
Right.
I have no idea why Caleb Williams transferred. Oh, well, your coach left? Okay, that's one of those situations that was specifically why the transfer portal was designed.
Right. Because
coaches were able to leave and players were not. Well, now players can leave. But now it's gone to the point where it's like, okay, well, hey, we have a Dodge Charger. We have a luxury condominium and $30,000 a month for you if you come play here.
Let's go somewhere.
It's kind of become the wild, wild west and the haves versus the have-nots.
As is life.
But you know what we're seeing with Coach Prime? We're seeing now a historically black college who usually is not going to be able to compete in the transfer portal. Now we're starting to see, hey, everybody has access. Everybody can transfer. Everybody can move. I don't know. I don't know if contracts are the answer, but I certainly think it's an interesting starter. Absolutely. I think it's an interesting starter. Kurt Myers, I don't know. Kurt Myers, let me go up. There's got to be another one. There it is. Kurt Meyer says, please, people, if you haven't put a living will or end-of-life document in place for every family member, without these documents in place, it can be impossible to move loved ones to hospice. We just moved my mother home and on hospice for end-of-life. She has a full, not all family wanted this. Thanks for your support. Well, I mean, wow, that is a very serious deal.
Yeah.
We wish you the best. Yeah, if you don't have a living will, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're absolutely crazy. Sean Mirazinski says, true, Tanner. To some, though, some may think of that as an excuse. Injuries are not a factor. Sean Mirazinski, let's see. Salty Drunk says, I enjoy football discussion immensely, but I was just curious, will we be doing some hoop chat in the heart of the NBA season? Well, when we get to the heart of the NBA season, let me know. Jeff Johnson says, Monty, you had the exact opposite take for MVP in baseball. Now all of a sudden it's an individual award and the team doesn't matter. Well, that's not what I said. What I said for MVP in baseball is that when I look at Aaron Judge had such an overwhelmingly, I mean, was there any question Aaron Judge was, I mean, the guy was almost won the Triple Crown.
Dude, he's the reason they made the postseason. Like,
I mean, football and baseball cannot be compared. They're two completely different animals. Like, you cannot compare the MVP race in baseball to the Heisman Trophy in football. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you're quite literally, it's an apple and an orange. There's no comparison. So I look at the Heisman and I think, okay, well, you know, you've got to look at talent. You've got to look at who's around. It's one of the issues with Stetson Bennett. His stats are not good, and he's on arguably the most talented team in college football.